just kind of.
Let's go. Yo. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast. And that's facts.
Happy Friday, Chicago. Welcome into the Chicago Sports Podcast here. I got Plank and Chris beside me here on this Friday. And I don't know about you fellas, exactly where you guys are all at. I am enjoying the warm weather that we are having. Here in Missouri, it was about 70 today. I don't know about you guys. I love it.
I'm jealous because San Diego's been chilly, which has been odd lately.
Normally it's really nice in San Diego from what I hear.
I know. I stepped out and I was shivering. I was like, what is this feeling?
I see Kyle's already in the chat talking about from Toronto, Canada. I don't want to be in Toronto with all that cold. I hate the snow. I hate the cold. I'm glad it's going to start warming up. We got March will be here in about
1 or 2 days, I believe.
Yeah. Couple days here.
Those NFL Combine, especially with the Chicago Bears, they have met with 17 players so far. 17's a lot, fellas. I'll go through them quickly here. I think if anyone catches your attention, which I'm sure there's a few that will, be sure to chime in. So start off from the top. Ashton Jeanty, running back out of Boise State. Sure, that's a name no one's going to be unfamiliar with. Omarion Hampton, running back out of North Carolina. Gunnar Helm, tight end out of Texas. Terrance Ferguson, tight end out of Oregon. Bech, wide receiver out of TCU. Xavier Restrepo, wide receiver out of Miami. Mykel Williams, wide receiver out of Wazoo, Washington State. Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan. Mykel Williams, edge, Georgia. Jamaree Caldwell, defensive tackle out of Oregon. Jalen McLeod, linebacker out of Auburn. Kain Medrano, linebacker out of UCLA. Carson Schwesinger, linebacker UCLA. Andrew Mukuba, safety Texas. Sebastian Castro, safety out of Iowa. Kevin Winston, safety out of Penn State. And rounding it out is Dorian Strong, cornerback out of Virginia Tech. Plank, you're to my left. I'll start with you. Give me a name that caught your attention in that list. There's a lot of them, I know. So maybe I went through them a little too fast, but give me one that caught your attention.
Well, I'm just going to pick off the easy one, Ashton Jeanty. I mean, he's been nothing less than impressive this entire year. 374 carries, 2,601 yards, 29 TDs, an average of 7 yards per carry. That's impressive. He looks like he could be legit.
Yeah, also notable runner-up to the Heisman to Travis Hunter. Surely he'll go in the top 5. He's outside of the Bears' range. But again, thanks for everyone joining us here tonight. See Kyle in the chat, Jay Grizz and Romy as well. Appreciate everyone showing out tonight so far that has. Be sure to hit that like, comment button and the subscribe button as well. Be sure to keep up here at the Chicago Sports Podcast with all your Combine news because there's going to be more than what we got here. But Chris, any of those other names stand out to you that the Bears have met with so far?
It was the safety position, the Mukuba. See, the thing about it is, when you actually pay attention to a Dennis Allen system on defense, one of those names that came up consistently was C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And that was because he was a safety that was able to play in the back end, but he's mainly in the slot. So what's happening now with the safety play is you got to be able to play on different levels, like a Kyle Hamilton. But the main thing is to be able to defend the deep part of the field. Mukuba does all that. He plays multiple positions on that defense. That shows that he has a lot of knowledge of the playbook. And, when he's the guy that flies around and he throws his body around too. Everybody remembers that the hit on Gunnar Stockton in the college football playoffs. So he's one of those guys. He's a playmaker and he's going to make big hits. So to see if, they can get him to be like a C.J. Gardner-Johnson on a Dennis Allen defense, that is very pivotal because he got to be able to cover, tackle, and everything that comes as far as a safety. Everything's gonna be put to the test. So I'm interested to see if we select him, where that go.
Yeah, Mukuba, one of those many safeties that the Bears have met with. He ran also a 4.45 40-yard dash today. Very impressive at safety. And I think it's also worth noting how many safeties they've met with. And when you look at the Bears roster, safety doesn't look like a huge need. You have Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Byard back there. But I think the issue with Byard, or not with Byard, excuse me, but he is older. He has the deal on his contract. But you're talking about a physical safety, that strong safety position. That's kind of what Jaquan Brisker plays. And I don't think anyone really has a problem with Jaquan Brisker and his play. I sure as hell don't. The only problem is he can't stay healthy, Chris. Do you think that's maybe one of the reasons why they're looking so heavily into the safety? Because if you're not on the field, you can't contribute.
Absolutely. Availability is the best ability. And when you look at, the guys that they've selected, they're not just deep safety guys. These are guys that are kind of like a tweener, so to speak. So they could play a little bit of the slot and they, have them in as the box safety, not just the deep safety. They're interchangeable throughout the defense on different levels. So the thing is to be available, but also have a variety as far as your play style, how you're able to be used on the field. And even if Jaquan Brisker is healthy, I believe the other guy they bring in is going to be used in different ways as well. So he could possibly be the other deep safety if they, he could beat out Kevin Byard, which I don't really believe can happen at this level yet. Or they'll just put him in the slot, because a lot of these teams are passing teams nowadays. You rarely find a team that runs the football more times than they pass or even close to it. So they're just trying to get along with this new age where you have safeties near the box or in the slot so you could defend the run. It's like having a lighter, faster linebacker in some cases.
Yeah, Plain, what are your thoughts on that with the Bears maybe looking deeper into the safety position? I'm maybe sure it's going to be used at that first round pick. What overall with them do you think it's due diligence, or do you think with their smoke there's fire and they're actually going to consider drafting one of these guys higher up?
Well, I think with speaking with three of them, they definitely have them in their sight, and I think it's Byard, like you said, he's a little older. You get some rookies in there. He's got time to trade. He's a veteran to show him how things are going to be. And Jaquan, I mean, we like to see him stay healthy, but if he doesn't, he's also there as a veteran to teach. I believe that he would do that. I don't think he's the type that's going to shun him if they're there, maybe to take his job. He's going to see it as competition and excel at it and bring them along with him. I really do. I think they're doing their due diligence.
Yeah, definitely doing a little bit of everything here. But when you're looking at the safety position overall, the guys they met with, they haven't met with what I believe is the best safety in this draft class, and that's Nick Emmanwori out of South Carolina. I'm sure if you guys are familiar with Ryan Poles and his draft kind of checklist that he has, he wants athletic guys. Nick Emmanwori, he scored a perfect 10 on the athletic score. He was phenomenal today. Filled in at 6'3", that's in the 97th percentile, 220 pounds, 92nd percentile, vertical 43 inches, 98th percentile, broad jump 11 feet 6 inches, 98th percentile, and a 4.4 flat 40-yard dash to round out the measurables for Nick Emmanwori out of South Carolina. I already liked Emmanwori before that because, as Chris was talking about, Mukuba, Emmanwori can play downhill, he can play physical, and he's also a safety net in the backfield. I was just kind of wondering if that's a name that's caught your guys' attention before and maybe was also a little bit surprised if they haven't met with him yet. Obviously, they still can. Maybe a little bit surprised that he was omitted from that first list.
But when you hear the measurables and the IQ, it should be something on somebody you should put on your list because that at those measurables, you'll be able to run a 4.4, and on top of that, you're also able to show you can process information extremely well. That sounds like a guy that can be a sleeper in this draft, and you'd be like, oh, why didn't our team pick this guy up? So I think they should probably give him a look, especially when you want a safety that's interchangeable throughout positions that can do multiple jobs on the defense. So yeah, I say give it. I say he should get an interview. I'm not the GM.
Yeah.
I don't get paid to do that. I'm just here on this podcast with you guys. But if I had to say, I would give that guy a look over because he's also a key piece to that South Carolina defense that was like went into that season a little bit slept on. And yeah, I would say give a look into that.
If not, if he wasn't on anybody's list, he should be now. And that's as simple as that.
Yeah,
I like
6'3", 220.
Yeah, it's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, runs a 4.4 flat too. The straightaway speed there at safety net. You can get both sides of the field insanely fast. It's going to be rare to see that sort of build in the NFL at safety, and it's no surprise why he's projected. He was kind of projected early second, back end first before today. I'm sure after today, he might not fall into that second round. He might even fly up into that middle round part of the first round. So maybe a little bit out of Bears reach, but we talk about the potential for a Bears trade down. He could be maybe someone they look at in a trade down. So safety was a position that it really felt like the Bears were hammering in on with these meetings. The other one that kind of caught my attention a little bit was tight end. They didn't have as many interviews with tight ends as they did with safeties, but the fact that they're already giving some of these guys a look, and it's not the top end guys. They didn't look at Tyler Warren. They didn't look at Colston Loveland, the Penn State and Michigan tight ends respectively. But Gunnar Helm and Terrance Ferguson are some interesting names that they could look at maybe in the third round or later. Obviously, they already have Cole Kmet, but you released Gerald Everett a little while ago. I'll start with you on this one, Plank. Do you believe this is Ben Johnson's footprints and DNA already getting over the Bears draft plan a little bit with maybe trying to draft a tight end?
Well, we know how he likes his tight ends and how he likes to use them and the body type that he likes, speed. So yeah, I would think so that this could be part of Ben Johnson, his influence.
Chris, what do you think?
I think so. I think he knows what type of tight end he that's best for his system because he was also a tight end coach at one particular point throughout his coaching career. So, and then on top of that, you look at the emergence of Sam Laporta 2 years ago. Yeah, this guy knows how to pick him. I think when you look at guys like Ferguson and Helm, it's kind of just like Sam Laporta. It's like he's like more smooth but sneaky speed and a big body that has hands. And those type of guys they can drop in the draft. And also what I've also noticed about Chicago is they're drafting based off of priority of certain needs and where they can go as far as like drafting position to fit the mold for this team. Like they have safety at a certain spot. They're not just going after the best safeties because safety's not the biggest need. They're not going after the best tight end because tight end's not the best need. They're ordering their board by need of position and then who's available at this particular juncture. And I honestly think that's a realistic view of how to set your team up because now it's not like, oh, we thought this guy would drop like 2 rounds. Like you're not going to have that realistically happen unless something happened character-wise. So I honestly think, the way he's setting up this draft board, these guys are on it.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up about not the biggest needs for the roster in tight end and safety, but they're still looking at guys they might be able to draft. Obviously, now at that first round pick, maybe not even the second round picks, but maybe that third round and further. You never know who might fall to you. It's always good to cast a wide net. And if someone does end up falling to you, you've already met with them. Right now, we got 28 people in the building. Hope everyone's having a good night. See, Trax is in the chat. Erica, Romy as well. Darius checking in. What is up, everybody in the chat? If you haven't, drop a like, comment down below. We'll try and get to comments in a little while here, still diving into the prospects. But as Chris already just mentioned, they're looking at guys that maybe aren't the best at their position. However, there is one position that they already did look at the best, and that's running back. When you interview Ashton Jeanty and you interview Omarion Hampton as well, that might be 1 and 2 on a lot of people's draft boards at the running back position. I think that says a lot about what the Bears maybe think about running back heading into the year. I know Ben Johnson said they're excited about DeAndre Swift. I think actions speak louder than words, fellas. He's already traded him away once when he was in Detroit. I think they're going to really heavily consider taking a running back here. Now, whether it's at 10, that'd have to be Jeanty, or in the second round, that's more than likely Hampton. We'll have to see. But I think interviewing both of these guys tells me that that's a high priority and probably is going to take one of the with those top 3 picks. What do you think, Chris?
Well, I think it was a surprise to me. Well, the Jeanty part, no, because Jeanty is a Heisman runner up. He had a great case to even win it. But when you look at Hampton's one of those backs that when you look at him and you see the way he runs, you'd be like, "What's wrong? Like, you really upset today? Like, who really ticked you off today?" And that's the type of running back you would like to have, because that's the type of dude that's gonna have contact balance, run through tackles, and just keep plowing ahead. And the way this is looking to me, if he does keep Swift, it kind of looks like a kind of a variation of what he had in Detroit. Just Swift doesn't have that same speed as Jahmyr Gibbs, and Swift is more of a smooth runner. But you have that guy that can plow into a couple guys, fight, show a lot of contact balance, and just give the defense a lot of pain and suffering with his pads. And I think that's another thing that will help Caleb Williams, because you use the run game to stay ahead of schedule. You get about a good 3-4 yards. Now, when you get to second and third down, your play calling can you have a larger variety of plays you can call, because now you're at a 2nd and 5 or a 2nd and 4 or a 3rd and 4. So I think that the key thing for him is to alleviate the offensive line in some way, is to get ahead of the chains. And I honestly see that's a good idea.
Yeah, what do you think, Blank, about the Bears potentially drafting a running back high and maybe one of the top guys? Again, Jeanty and Hampton, very similar play styles. They're downhill runners, a little bit of a counterpart to DeAndre Swift. Whether he's here or not, still up in the air. We'll have to see. But nonetheless, both Jeanty and Hampton, 2 guys that run downhill, want to run through your face and try and get the first down the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, it's the thunder and the lightning, right? I mean, that's the 2. I guess we'll see. I think Jeanty, they have to interview him. It's malpractice if they don't. And they have a better, obviously, they know what they want to do in free agency. So it could be that maybe they are planning to shore up some things in free agency to where they can and possibly have to move up to get Jeanty. And if not, they've resigned the fact that he may not fall to us, or depending on what happens in free agency, they're looking more for Hampton maybe to fall back within range, be right there for it, maybe at the whatever round they want.
Yeah, definitely able to do all of that. And I believe it was, trying to find the comment, it was Erica here saying they interviewed Scatabo too. I thought I did see that. I wasn't 100% sure though, just going off the list I was given. I'm surprised they haven't interviewed Caleb Johnson too as well. I think I am too, especially when there was a rumor going around about how infatuated Ben Johnson was with Caleb Johnson. Is there a running back? Again, this running back class is so deep. It's so really good right now. You can find value in the 3rd, 4th round. I mean, we're not even talking about Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Ollie Gordon, big name guys that haven't even been mentioned. There may be a little bit of a surprise name that hasn't been mentioned. Maybe it is Caleb Johnson, but is there a name for you guys that maybe you thought that would have been on that list?
Yeah, I go Caleb Johnson, most definitely. Most definitely. I was surprised, or I like the way he runs. I think he should be interviewed as well. He's one that could possibly fall to where we could pick him up.
For me, is Travion Henderson. Just for the simple fact that he's a guy. He can run. He could run for the tough yards, but he is also a guy that when he hits the hole, you might as well just get your arms ready and put them in the air because it's a touchdown. We've seen him break big runs. In the national championship game, who breaks a screen for a 75-yard touchdown and it make it look so easy. The guy's just vision, smooth runner, speed. That's something scary for a runner to have at running back. So I was surprised he wasn't interviewed.
He makes it look so smooth that they kind of give more credit to the offensive line than they do him.
Now he gets slept on because he made it look easy.
Yeah.
I wish we could have an O-line that would allow our running backs to get that sort of benefit where they're able to just blame the O-line and the running backs just kind of get to do their own thing and they kind of gets overshadowed by the O-line. I hope one day we get there, fellas.
Yeah.
I think the thing is that sometimes O-lines look so good and make it and look so dominant that we look at the backs as just like beneficiaries of it. Nah, they work hand in hand, man. It doesn't matter if you make the hole. If the back don't have division, it's still gonna be 2nd and 8 after the run. So you know what I'm saying? It all comes together, man.
That's a fact.
That's why I was a little bit surprised there wasn't a little bit more pushback with Saquon and Philly and even both Detroit backs, like how good those O-linemen were. I was surprised with how national media narratives can get that they were like, oh, it's just the O-line. Those guys ain't that good. It's just the 5 guys up front. But I was actually really surprised. It really feels like a lot of people are starting to respect running backs a little bit more in the National Football League. And maybe that's just the difference between college and the pro level. But I was a little bit surprised by how much respect that Saquon got. I mean, I love Saquon, really good player. Maybe even should have been in the MVP conversation, but definitely hoping the Bears can one day get that sort of level running back and that sort of production from their O-line, because obviously we saw Philadelphia, it wins you Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Moving in a little bit further into some of these other position groups that the Bears have been interviewing so far, I think we'll step over to receiver because I really like what Chris said earlier. These aren't names that you can see at the top of the board. It's not your Tetaroa McMillan, your Luther Burden, or your Matthew Golden out of Texas. These are guys that are in the back, maybe in the middle rounds. Maybe it's later day 2 pick or early day 3. Jack Bech, TCU, Xavier Restrepo out of Miami, who I'm a really big fan of, and Mykel Williams out of Wazoo. 3 wide receivers there. Obviously, you got DJ Moore. Sounds like Keenan Allen isn't going to be back, but you also have Roma Dunze as well that you took in with the 9th pick last year. What are we thinking about wide receiver? Is this a position that you guys even want to draft, or is this something that you'd feel more comfortable with filling in free agency for that third wide receiver?
I may as well draft him. And it could be that maybe they don't think as highly on Tyler Scott as what maybe I do. And so they're looking, but yeah, maybe they need to draft.
I say draft. One, less money. You know, the salary is going to be totally different. If you get a veteran guy, you're going to have to pay veteran money. And based off of how good he's been, you're going to have to pay based off of that as well. So when you bring in a rookie and you bring him in late rounds, you're talking about a considerably not as much cachet, it's not as much commitment because of his late round pick, but also you get to see the potential. So like a guy like Xavier Restrepo, you know, guy that can run, he runs his routes, clean hands, more of a hands catcher, and then on top of that, he does special teams too. So there's a whole lot. All these players have a certain level of where they can do this and a little extra type of thing. So, and I've noticed that, you know, after looking and watching the draft board, there's a lot of players that tween as far as like what they could do on the football field. And yeah, I really like Xavier Restrepo. I really do. He's been balling since.
Yeah, him and Cam Ward last year were something special to watch for that Miami Hurricane team. I'm not a big Miami fan, but overall, it's really hard to not respect what those two were able to do with their connection for the Hurricanes last year. But Restrepo's a guy that's kind of projected back into your 3rd round right now, a guy that I've been having my eye on for a while, even pre-draft. was Isaiah Bond out of Texas. When you look at these Ben Johnson offenses, how they have that Jamison Williams, that speed guy, he can take you over the top. DJ Moore, he can kind of do that. I don't think Odunze is the greatest archetype. Neither guys are the greatest archetype. Obviously, they're not slow by any means, but they're not exactly a burner. I think Isaiah Bond could absolutely fill that role from Texas, and he did last year from them catching bombs from Ewers and Manning at times. I thought that was a name that I'd see on here. I think that is a name to come. And I was just kind of wondering your thoughts about potentially looking for that Jamison Williams role maybe in this.
Well, I think there's a different. Oh, Plank, you want to take this one or?
No, go ahead.
Because I'll talk
go ahead,
forever, man.
You're fine.
I think it's a difference in how the Lions are built versus how the Bears are built. When you pay attention to the Lions, you think of Amon-Ra St. Brown, and even though he has ability to do it, he's not really known for the deep shots and stuff like that. But he'll literally dice you up in the middle of the field, and he'll dice you up when it comes to zone coverages. And you think of his hands. When you look at DJ Moore, it's him being able to do everything. He has run after catch. The ability to do that. We've seen him catch screens and take him to the house. He can run he could burn deep. And on top of that, he's a pretty good route. Not pretty good. He's a great route runner. So when you have that type of thing, you don't really need that burner like that, because now if you have 3 guys or 2 guys that could do that same thing, now you can just bring in a guy like a Restrepo or anybody like that could just contribute in a way where it makes this offense harder to stop.
Yeah, Playing, what do you think about potentially looking at some speed guys in the draft? Maybe not the most polished wide receivers, but adding speed into the wide receiver room. Or are you more where it's a little bit different based on team build from Detroit to Chicago?
Well, you're not going to go wrong with speed. I'm obviously look at what Kansas City does with it, and the way that Ben Johnson, his offense is set up. It's set up for that, for the yards after the catch, burn you right down the middle. Play the short game a little bit, then burn you the long game. So, yeah, I'm right there with it.
Got about 10 minutes here remaining in the show, but still want to shout out everyone in the chat. Still see tracks. Foster Covers, I think this is the first time I've seen you. Hope you're having a good night. And Dobbsy as well. Some familiar names in the chat tonight. Be sure to keep leaving some questions for us here regarding some of the position groups. We've gone over safety. We've gone over wide receiver now, tight end, and also running back. Maybe some names you guys are looking at that maybe the Bears haven't exactly gotten in contact with. They still got some time, though, to sit down with some newer guys, and we'll hear about that probably tomorrow if they do. But there are some names still left, and 2 big names that I think people are already familiar with. They play different positions, but on the same position group. That's Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan, and Mykel Williams, the edge out of Georgia. And if you ask me right now who I want to take at pick 10, I've said Mykel Williams, and I've said Jalen Jalen Walker, both out of Georgia. Those are my 1A, 1B. So I'm stoked to see them looking at Mykel Williams. He also tested very well today. And obviously Mason Graham, one of the best defensive tackle prospects that's come out of the draft in a little while here. So I was wondering what your guys' thoughts were on that, because Mason Graham at least goes a little bit against what we were discussing earlier, where the Bears are looking at guys that they realistically maybe have an option to get. It feels like Mason Graham's a little bit out of their range at 10. I feel like he's almost a locked-in top 5 pick at this point. So do you guys think maybe this is looking to possibly trade up in case chaos hits the fan on draft night and Graham maybe starts slipping to 6 or 7, maybe even 8?
I think it is. I think it's honestly more realistic than unrealistic, because we've seen drafts where the guy is supposed to be a top 5 pick and he ends up going to like 12 or 15 or something like that, and everyone's sitting there shocked, wondering why they still in the green room. So and I could also see them using a pick to trade for a trade if they get him like probably 1 or 2 spots ahead and he's still on the board. Thing about it is that deep guys like him aren't really easy to find, and it's based off of what he can do. He's one of the best of them. Hence why he's slated to go top 5. So I would say if they're going to commit to trading up, I would say they have to commit to it, or they're just going to have to get their guy when they get him. I actually like the fact that they're looking at those two players, Graham and the name just left my head.
Mykel Williams.
the edge from Georgia, because those are two things that are really needed. They're addressing the trenches, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm loving it.
I agree. I like how they're addressing the trenches, and you have to look at both of them. A lot can happen between now and then. Maybe Mason falls, but you've got to look at both of them. And I'm right there. You got to address the trenches. That's what it's about this year.
A guy that it wasn't listed on their list of meetings, but I believe absolutely should be on their radar after the day he had yesterday, scoring a 999 on the athletic score. And that's Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, another SEC school producing a freak athlete on the edge. Obviously, everyone knows the name Myles Garrett. Same school, 10-yard split for Shamar Stewart at, I believe this is 40-yard. Yeah, it was about a second and a half for his 10-yard split. 4.6 40 though for a guy that weighs 267. That's a guy that's in their range, and it really feels like the Bears, if they're looking edge, looking D-line with that number 10 pick, there's going to be a guy that they're going to have their eyes on, because James Pierce also tested well. I believe he ran a 4.4 or 4.49, or it was close to 4.45 40-yard dash. Again, those are big boys moving that fast on the football field. They have their choice of freak athletes there. I was kind of wondering your guys' thoughts maybe on how the edges have tested so far overall.
Faster he is, the faster he can get to the quarterback.
I like that.
For me, the edges tested as to me as advertised. The one that threw me off was Pierce from Tennessee, running the way he did in the 40. But when my concern about it is someone said it in the comments. It's like a lot of these guys aren't really high sack guys, so they'll show disruption. But as far as like how are you finishing, and I think that's the biggest concern. But when it comes to these guys, they're freak athletes, man. They're you're that size running how fast? Yeah. You would take a shot at these guys, because they're big guy running 4.4, 4.3. No, no, Jesus, I'm good. I'm not playing against that.
I do get the sack concerns, because obviously on paper, when you're drafting an edge rusher, what do you want? You want him to get to the quarterback, and how you get that are your sacks. But, I mean, looking at Shamar Stewart, I mean, people, I think, forget that Danielle Hunter, he had 4.5 sacks his year entering the draft. I think Danielle Hunter's ended up quite well. And I think it's kind of one of those things where you got to look at traits. And that's not exactly or 100% on what you do at the combine. I believe it's a little bit of a microcosm of your traits overall. But how do you look on the football field? How explosive are you up the jump? How well do you play the run? What do you look like in there? And Shamar Stewart, he at least checks the box for the athleticism part. I haven't gotten too much in the film, so I'm not going to speak out of nowhere on Shamar Stewart and his film. But overall, I think a lot of these guys are like that. These guys aren't putting up your stats that are going to make them jump off the screen and say, we got to draft him, unless you're Abdul Carter. But that's the reason he's going in the top 3 this year, and the Bears won't be able to get him. But the mention that Myles Garrett, Shamar Stewart, both out of A&M, and their measurables almost identical. Myles Garrett was 6'4.5", 272. Shamar Stewart, 6'5", 267. Myles Garrett's vertical jump was 41 inches. Shamar Stewart's was 40. Myles Garrett, 10 feet, 8-inch broad jump. And Shamar Stewart, 10 feet, 11-inch broad jump. And I believe their 40s were within a couple seconds of each other. But again, the big difference for Shamar Stewart and Myles Garrett was Garrett had about 30 sacks in college, propelling him to the number 1 overall pick, where Shamar Stewart was sitting at around 5 or 6.5. So obviously production is a little bit of a concern, but you got to draft these guys based on their tape and their talent and what you believe they can build them up to, what you believe Dennis Allen is able to build them up to, and that'll be play a big role in which defensive end they may or may not draft in the first round. But I think looking at the rest of the guys that they've kind of scouted, the last position was linebacker. And I'm going to be honest, some of these guys I have not heard of. This makes me believe these are guys to look to try and fill depth on their defense. That's Jalen McLeod, Kain Medrano, and Carson Schwesinger. McLeod out of Auburn, Medrano out of UCLA, and so is Schwesinger also out of UCLA. So taking a long look at these UCLA linebackers maybe, guys.
I see them more as like guys you're gonna just prepare to put on special teams and see if they can, work their way up into the lineup. But just guys that are just meant for special teams as of right now. I don't see them as like guys you could see as potential starters at this particular time.
Yep.
Looking for Dennis to develop them.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see it just kind of your more late round picks, guys that you're just kind of looking to fill in the rest of the roster. Also, maybe special teams guys trying to just work their way into the starting lineup. And with Dennis Allen, I mean, the linebacker core has been a little bit up and down with Edwards and Edmonds, but Edmonds is still very young. Edwards a little bit older, but I think with a defensive coordinator that is as good as Dennis Allen, he's going to bring the best out of those guys. But you can never have too much depth at linebacker, especially really any position with how injuries can pile up and kill you. You don't want one of those guys to leave for an extended period of time, and then you see the immense drop-off in production from the rest of the team. Again, looking in the chat, there's still a lot of people here, 32 people. Appreciate everyone still sticking with us. Got a few minutes left here on the Chicago Sports Podcast, just going over some of the guys that the Bears have met with at the Combine. I'm sure this isn't everyone, just getting about the list of 17 guys that they've met with so far. They're going to meet with a lot more guys. And I think overall, fellas, this kind of just shows us what position groups they're looking at and overall what realistically they're going to be able to draft them at. Like how Chris was mentioning, looking at the safety position, they didn't exactly meet with Eamon Worry officially. At least he's not on this list, who's probably the top safety, but they're still meeting with safeties that you can see in the middle round. I think that just shows that this front office with Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson, they're going to do their due diligence. We saw with the head coaching hire, how they casted the wide net, and they got a lot of flack for it, for why are you looking at this guy and that guy? But overall, you cast a wide net, you have all your options. It feels like they're doing that again in this draft, guys.
I agree. You have to cast a wide net, don't you? I mean, to be responsible, is there such a thing as looking at too many? I guess maybe there is, but I like the fact that they cast a wide net. That's my opinion.
Ain't nothing wrong with a little extra credit. When you look at it from that perspective, I'd rather look at, in some ways, I'd rather look at a little bit more players than I should have than not look at enough. So I mean, they're just broadening their horizon, looking at their positioning, where they could be at these particular times as far as draft capital, what players are getting drafted and stuff like that. So they're just trying to run the board the right way and not set themselves up for a position where you don't know what to pick at this particular time. Now you're reaching, or now you're getting a guy that should be picked a round or two later because the guys you set up on your board, they're not even there because you didn't set it up that way. So they're casting the net. That's true, but they're casting it in the areas they need and where they feel they could fill those potential needs.
Being prepared, got to be prepared.
Exactly.
Yep.
If you're already ready, you ain't gotta get ready.
Exactly.
That's right.
I like that.
I ain't mad at it.
And the Bears have already casted a wide net so far in this NFL Combine. It's only going to get wider as the days progress on through the weekend here. And you're not going to want to miss any of the new updates from the Bears at the Combine. Appreciate everyone in the chat here tonight. See Ant Mass checking in. Same with James and everyone else that was with us along the way, commenting. And all 33 people still with us. Appreciate you sticking with us all the way through the end, or even if you were here for just a couple minutes. And if you aren't already, hit that subscribe button. Also like this one, comment, share it, and subscribe with people that you know. We appreciate everything that you guys do for us here at the Chicago Sports Podcast by supporting us. But I think that'll do it for us here tonight. From me, Plank, and Chris, we'll be signing off. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, man. Y'all